What's that? Who there? Whoa.
All right, guys, I've got Oliver and Selom, the co-founders of Mad Rabbit. Guys, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, pumped to be here, man.
Absolutely. So I've been stoked for this for a long time. You guys are on a wave. We'll get into it, but you just had a Shark Tank episode air. Got a great deal. You guys are growing like crazy, so it's gonna be fun to talk to you. And I think the lens I want to take here is you guys started this company in college. You're obviously not. It's not a little company. You've grown it significantly, and like props are for sure due. But it's rare that we get an opportunity to talk to entrepreneurs who are younger and came straight from college into it. And so, it's going to be fascinating to get your approach on mindset, mentality, the approach you took in college, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are in the same positions you were. And so it's going to be super relatable. So I'm pumped to get into it. Like I said, the first thing I want to start with, maybe just give us like the 2-minute pitch of Mad Rabbit and like what your vision for the company is and the products you sell today. And we can go from there.
Yeah, for sure. I think I can kind of start in Selom if you want to fill in any gaps. I think the coolest part about this journey that we've been on is we initially sought to be the premier tattoo aftercare, right? So providing better solutions for tattoo healing and the long-term preservation of tattoos. What we've come to find over the last 2.5 years is not only is there a need for that, but there's also a need for a stronger tattoo community. So if you think about tattoo community, it's really broken up into a bunch of different subcultures. So not only is there a bunch of different art styles, but there's other reasons why people get tattoos. So for example, I like to point to mixed martial arts, MMA, UFC community. If you turn on any of those fights, one, if not both of those fighters are pretty much guaranteed to be tattooed. So you kind of extrapolate on that, and you can create some really awesome content for a very specific community. So I think our approach has really gone from just providing a really great solution for tattoos and really kind of morphed into building a more lifestyle community brand.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on early on is, so like you said, started in the tattoo aftercare space, and then you'll definitely balloon out from there. And we can talk about the community aspects as well. But just for the people who aren't aware and like might not have tattoos, can you just walk through like what the problem is with fading in tattoos and like why that hadn't been solved yet, and like the way that your initial products kind of solved that?
Yeah. So tattoos fade for kind of 3 reasons. The first one is time. So there's really nothing you can do to fight that aspect of it. But the other 2 are lack of hydration, which we like to think we solve with our all natural moisturizing balm. So that was our first product. Highly consumable. That's why it was an attractive first product to launch with. And then the second, and honestly probably more important thing that can damage tattoos over time is sun exposure. So we launched our SPF 30, which is also all natural. It's a zinc base. Was that March, Selom?
That was in March.
Right. And then the third thing is how your tattoo heals right after you get it in that first 2 weeks is extremely important to, if you think about the amount of ink that gets lost in the scabbing process, obviously that can be detrimental as well. So our full suite of products, so we have our moisturizing balm, the soothing gel for the first 2 weeks after you get your tattoo, and then the SPF 30. So that really covers like the full range of ailments that a tattoo can undergo over time. As we look to expand our product line, it's probably going to start delving more into skincare for the tattooed, beyond just traditional tattoo aftercare.
They're also all made to, I guess, fight against the misinformation in the tattoo aftercare space. So, for example, like vitamin E, it sees ink as an impurity, so it starts like pulling it out of your skin, or things like Vaseline, which suffocate your skin and make it hard to breathe and harder to heal.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this idea. It seems like what you guys are doing is building this kind of hub and spoke where Mad Rabbit is the hub, and like your initial spoke was the aftercare to try to prevent the fading. But now you can go into all these other sub things, right? Serve the tattoo community in other ways that may or may not like literally directly apply to their tattoos, but more so the ethos around the way they live, which I think is a huge, like you go from niche to like massive addressable market, which is pretty exciting. So, one of the sections that I wanted to tackle here was just like trying to break down super actionably how you guys started this. And I know I was talking to Selom before. You guys were seniors, second semester seniors in college when this all started. I actually similarly tried to co-found a company, same timing. Mine didn't work out as well as yours is. So it'll be fantastic for you guys just to break down, like, take me through initially. Was the approach, and the reason I asked this is what I did. It was a problem, but was the approach, we want to start a company, let's look for a market and a problem people have and try to solve it? Or was it, we have a problem that can't be solved and let's make a product for it and then see if there's a market? Like, maybe talk there and how it evolved in those initial months.
Yeah, so I'll address the latter part of your question real quick, and then Selom, maybe if you want to get into the proper founder story, because Selom is actually the one who kind of found e-commerce first. Um, my initial red flag and what really drew me to the market, I only had 1 or 2 tattoos at the time, but I was just baffled by the healing recommendation being a form of petroleum jelly, so it was either Aquaphor or Vaseline. I was like, how is there nothing, not only all natural being recommended, but also tattoo specific? So kind of getting to that vitamin E comment that Salam was talking about, like there's really nothing intentionally um, created for tattoo healing. So that was a pain point that I had recognized, and I knew it would resonate with other people. But that's kind of where we took a step back and decided to go the more consumable route and start off with a moisturizer. That way, we're not just pinning it to that first 2 weeks that you get a tattoo. Salam, you want to kick off the founder story?
Yeah, so Oliver and I initially met, it was second semester freshman year in our business fraternity. And about a couple of years later, junior year, I'm not sure what was going on, but I came to him with the idea of drop shipping swimsuits off of AliExpress. So drop shipping is basically the customer pays for the item before we pay and ship it out to them. So we launched that in February. So it was also second semester junior year. So we launched that in February. And within that first week, we saw traction right away. And I would credit that also to like Oliver's like had a good ability of just like making logos and picking names that are like flashy and names that stick. And we named it Ella Harding. And Ella is his dog's name and Harding is his brother's middle name. So like already it's like 2 English sounding names. It sounds expensive. It sounds premium. So people are going to be drawn to it. So quickly that grew. We're getting sales, and that's where we learned our first, like we got into our first mistakes and learned from that. We learned how to build a brand, how to bring customers, how to put ourselves in the customer's shoes, how to give proper customer service, basically also how to price products, and how to also create interest in our products so customers would come and want to buy it. So that was successful. We ran that for about 7 months.
So Ella Harding, and I want to break it down because I think there's people probably sitting there junior year in college right now, and they're like, wait, like it couldn't have been that easy. So did you put up a landing page, and then were you running paid social ads to it, and then you were figuring out the logistics? Just AliExpress was shipping to a warehouse, and then you were sending that to the customer.
Yeah, so we built it on Shopify. We legit built that site in probably 2 hours and then launched it later that day. And then within a few days, we had the first sales. So we were running ads off of Facebook and Instagram. And initially, like our ad experience came from watching YouTube videos and just like asking questions on Google. Because like we're just trying to figure out how to target, what the female demographic looks like with swimsuits, what brands they usually go after. And also we had to figure out, because like we're selling women's swimsuits, but we didn't know where to source pictures. Because like you can't just go screenshot another brand's pictures and post it on your website. So what we did was there are like a few royalty-free websites out there. One of them is called Unsplash. So we just like go in there, type in bikinis, and every day just post a picture from that site, because like you can't get sued for reposting pictures from that site. So people thought, oh, we have a huge customer base. People are actually wearing their stuff. So why not check it out? So
nice.
We built
so you guys
social
were
proof.
Very scrappy from the beginning.
Yeah, we built social proof without actually really having the social proof. Just fake it till you make it.
Yeah. So how much volume were you guys doing in like top line revenue from that during, I guess, like junior year and into the summer?
The entire business really did 40K in revenue. So it was about 7 months. I feel like that's pretty good for our first time attempting to e-commerce, because like a lot of people fail or end up losing money, but we got lucky. And I guess it's also due to our like diligence and research skills.
Yeah. So then the partnership formed. So you guys were like, all right, we've got a little powerhouse here. So how do you shift from, because I think it's really interesting, right? Like you, even 40K, that's more success or farther down the entrepreneurial stack than most people can get. They've like floundered before that. So you guys knew you had a little bit something special in terms of the way you worked and the dynamic. How'd you go from that to the tattoo aftercare?
Summer ended, and then we ended up somehow selling it. We sold it for 10K, and it's like, wow, like how did we pull that off? Which was nice. So we sold it, and I at the time I didn't get a return offer from my internship during the summer. Oliver did, so I was like trying to figure out like what I'm going to do next, going to career fair, trying to find a job, and then Oliver came to me with the idea of tattoo aftercare. And initially, I was like super against it because I didn't have tattoos, had no interest with tattoos, and also was confused about like how we'd market to a demographic which we don't really represent. We don't want to look like I don't want to look like a poser. And also wasn't sure like who else was in the space. But then I ghosted him for like, about a week or two, not responding to his text, and I just randomly decided, "All right, I'm going to look into this." And there are a few players in the space, but they weren't really brands or like customer centric. They were just, I guess, an option there for someone to go and buy.
Like commoditized almost.
Yeah, so they were just there just to be there. So chat with Oliver, I was like, okay, well, for me to do this, you have to pick a name and a logo that I like. And he came with Mad Rabbit, and like I really hated that name. It's grown on me a lot now. It's like iconic now because like Mad Rabbit, you don't really know what it is, so you have to look it up to see what it is, which is one of the, I guess, a good way we're able to bring that organic traffic. People want to see what Mad Rabbit is. Um, so I was like, all right, I'll do it. He picked the name and logo. And then I was like, all right, how are you going to figure out what to put in here? Because none of us have any expertise in mixing ingredients together, knowing what to put in there. But then luckily, his mom had years of apothecary experience. So she helped us pick our initial first 7 ingredients, taught us how to cook it, showed us a formula for it. And we bought ingredients off of Amazon, bought a big crock pot, and we are cooking it in his college apartment that first semester.
First semester senior year, right? You're basically experimenting, trying to prototype, find a formulation that works. I'm guessing you're like testing it on yourself and different friends at Miami who have tattoos and trying to see if it works. How do you go from that to a product that you're able to sell? Did you put up another site and then try to run ads to see if there was demand and then try to back into it, or how'd that work?
Yeah, so we put up another site that was pretty quick to make. And our first ever website was all black and white, like all the images were black and white. And through the months, we'd get ripped on by people saying, "You guys are promoting vibrancy in tattoos. Why is it black and white?" But we put up the site, and at first I was like, "All right, well, we're not sure if this is going to sell, so let me run ads and drive traffic to it. And if we get orders, since we don't really have inventory, I'll just cancel it." And probably within 48 hours, we got our first sale. I was like, "Holy shit, this is the quickest I've gotten a sale off of an e-commerce website." Um, so from then, it's like, all right, it's time to figure out actually how to make this, and we started cooking.
That's dope. Man, the story is crazy for so many reasons, but I think the biggest takeaway for me is not to say you guys didn't have skills, because I think skills compound and like you did one thing. I'm sure you experimented with building Shopify sites before, even Ella Harding, but like it seems like you just kept going, right? You said, okay, we have a little curiosity here. Let's chase it. Let's build a site. Let's run a small amount of ads. And I'm sure you had money from, either family or from the sale initially where you could do that, right? So a lot of people's excuses, especially when they're in college, are like, oh, I don't have money, or I don't have time, or I
Oh,
don't have knowledge. And like you guys figured all that stuff out.
yeah, my philosophy has always been like, if you really want to do something, really like it, you're going to make time for it no matter what. So when it started to pick up during the semester, we were skipping class, not sitting for exams, not going out at night just to cook this. So we sacrificed 1 or 2 days a week in college just to like not go to class and just cook this.
Yeah, it's going off your point. I think part of the reason why we got this off the ground at all is because we viewed it as not only a side hustle but a learning experience, and like we were very excited to learn this stuff along the way. So Kyle, those steps you were mentioning that we never really stopped taking, it's just kind of been a continuation of us trying to grow our business acumen, and really just keep learning along the way. And I think that's a huge benefit to starting off in college. I think that's a great reason why it's a good time to start off. Is if it doesn't work, you have time. It's not like you ditched your full-time job. Um, and college affords you a lot of freedom. It's just really about what you choose to do at that time. So. Um, I mean, I can confidently say that we wouldn't be in this position had we tried to start this a year and a half later.
And I would also say that it was nice starting in college because like we had friends that were able to help us when it started to pick up. So like Oliver and I couldn't make the ingredient, like mix it alone or package the orders and print out the stuff or take it to the USPS. So we had people around us just come in and just like help us every single day to help get orders out, which was nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's no better way to build a business than to, or like learn how to build a business than to build a business, right? Like you guys are in business school in classes that are, at least when I was there, fairly disconnected from the realities of what it's like to build a business. So you're doing this on the side, actually like honing the skills, and it's like a no downside proposition, which is pretty cool. So talk to me about, right? So you start really commercializing it, I think, second semester of senior year. And I think you both, I was talking to Selom before this, you both went and worked a full-time job for some period of time while you're doing this as a side hustle. So this is another hurdle or roadblock that people who start things in college have. They're like afraid to go out on a limb and potentially not work their full-time job and chase something like this. You guys took the path of let's do both until maybe the side hustle becomes a full-time income replacement or some logic like that. So maybe talk us through how you thought about that mentality. Were you guys aligned in that? Were one of you a little bit leaning more towards the full-time job route? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So I think luckily when we graduated, it wasn't showing all the potential yet. I think that would have made us think a little bit harder about our decision. But, we both had great jobs lined up our senior year. I was going on to M&A consulting, which I was super excited to do. I'd already interned in the space and I knew I loved it. Um, and Salam had a great job in finance lockdown. Now would be a great time for me to plug the importance of having a co-founder who's willing to wear and carry some of the weight. Salam left his job back in October of 2019. I didn't start full time
20,
with Mad Rabbit
2020.
until, sorry, 2020. I didn't start full time until January of this past year. So there was 6 months of Salam really carrying the weight of daily operations and stuff like that. So I think had we been individuals in this, I don't think it would have been a feasible path.
I would also, I guess, want to add that I feel like we were low-key lucky that COVID happened because then work from home started. So like work from home, obviously, you're not going to be 100% focused on your full-time job. So my thing was I'd wake up, get my full-time job done as fast as possible, and just spend the rest of the time working on my job. Because like, I mean, your boss is going to track you and see what you're working on. So why not just make the most of it?
Yeah. The two screen life. You got two laptops open, just going back and forth. Yeah, when you're off meetings. So how do you guys think about like building the supply chain? So there's so many facets of building a business where you have a physical product, right? You have to build the supply chain, ingredient quality, customer service. You have to deal with returns. There's so much like cash flow management. There's so many things. What were some of the things, and I know you learned this along the way, but like, what were the biggest things that didn't work well in that first year while you were figuring out like what the process is to really scale this?
We learned from our mistakes from that first business. So like, for example, that first business, we were drop shipping swimsuits from China. So obviously there's a 2 week or maybe sometimes a month lag time in which customers are like, where's my product? It's been a while. Then you start learning like different texts as to how to respond to them. So you can say, oh, you got something that sort of has been sorted out for a few weeks. Now we're going to get it to you pretty soon. So pretty early, you pick up the customer service aspect there. And then you can also learn how to, I guess, tactics to make customers more patient by giving them a discount code for their order also, or maybe just like refunding the order completely or refunding shipping. So it's like little things that you pick up along the way, but then also you can pick things up off of Google and YouTube.
Yeah, I think that's well said. The only other thing I would just add is like I honestly don't think we've made any mistakes per se because I think we've done a great job of pivoting from non-ideal news, I'll call it. So like for example, we were using a lower cost supplier for our last delivery mile for our packages and ended up losing a ton of orders with this company. Um, and whereas like that's maybe a mistake that we chose to go with them. I mean, it was just a pretty quick pivot, and as long as you're on top of that stuff, and you have a strong pulse on customer service, it's really easy to pivot actually.
Yeah. And I'm sure, I mean, the agility is one thing, right? Like you guys are close to it, close to the ground. So like when a mistake starts to fester, you kill it before it
Exactly.
becomes
Yeah,
a big thing. So
that's
that's
the nice thing because we're pretty involved into like what everyone else is doing, and we see what's going on in the emails and then DMs if we don't see it, someone tells us. So pretty right, like pretty fast or pretty quickly, if we see something wrong, we know we can act on it.
yeah. I mean, I gotta say, you guys are making it seem fairly easy. I'm sure it's been a grind, but and I think one of the things is this is probably a testament to product market fit, right? Like you guys, and this is a question that came in. I asked on Instagram for people to crowdsource questions, and one of the questions that came in from our boy Alex Ross was effectively like, you guys found the perfect product for the perfect market, and I'll add for the perfect channel, right? So like, and his point is great. People who have tattoos love showing off tattoos. People who have tattoos love showing them off on social media. So you build a product that helps create a better environment for tattoos. People show it off. Like there's that natural viral loop, which not every company or market has. And so, like, did you think about that intentionally at the beginning, or was it just fortunate? Early on, you're like, well, okay, we got something here where like people start sharing. Maybe just talk about like your marketing playbook a little bit and how that's evolved.
Yeah, so I was kind of touching on it earlier. We fully sought out with the intentions of being like a solution to help tattoos heal better. And kind of what you're getting at with that viral loop, like we learned a couple months in how excited these people are to share their tattoos with complete strangers. Like those subcultures that I was alluding to, that people, they get tattooed for different reasons. We found Mad Rabbit. It's like a really great way to mesh those communities together. Um, there's like no shame in sharing their tattoos, and it almost positions us as like a storytelling brand where we don't really necessarily have a stake in what's being said, but we're more so like a platform for people to share about themselves.
So we noticed that pretty early on. Our first ever marketing tactic, when we launched Mad Rabbit, was we had little postcards in each package that said, "Tag us on Instagram with your tattoo, and we'll give you 20% off your first purchase." So people were doing that, and it's gotten to the point where we stopped putting those postcards, telling people to post it, and we get hundreds of DMs every single week, just people showing off their tattoos with Mad Rabbit, and we repost it, and people get excited when we repost them onto the Mad Rabbit page because they're like, "This is a big page, this is a big deal." So I'm really happy that they're sharing my story.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. So you guys, I guess, and we'll get to the Shark Tank piece because I kind of want to break that down and get like behind the scenes look, which I've never seen on social or any podcast. That'll be really interesting. But when you guys were headed into that episode, which I guess was last fall, you were already on like a $3 million annual run rate. And so one of the questions that I like to ask founders is this idea of 10x growth. And so 10x growth is not easy. I mean, it's maybe easy when you're going from 300 to 3,000 or like 3,000 to 30,000, but you guys already have 3 million annual run rate, and I'm sure well beyond that now. So like, what's the playbook? And I'm sure you have this in your leadership meetings, and you talk about this. What's the playbook to go from 3 million to 30 million in top line revenue? Talk me through that a little bit.
We first year we went from 400 to 3 mil, and then this year it's at 3.5. So we've already crossed last year's. And the main playbook, it's not super difficult. It's just focusing on building that community and also educating your customers. Because if you can educate them with the right traffic care tips, they're going to spread that information and tell people, "Oh, I learned how to take care of my tattoos the right way from Mad Rabbit." So that way, if someone they know gets a tattoo, they know to come to us. So that way, their tattoo doesn't get fucked up. We get DMs from people with tattoos that have scarring issue or like infections, and they ask us, "Hey, what should I do?" And usually at that point, like, there's nothing we can do. Just let them know, like, next time you get a tattoo, come to us and we can help you with our soothing gel, because there is a right way to heal your tattoos. There's a bad way to heal your tattoos. And sadly, some people out there don't really know how to take care of their tattoos after they get it. So that $1,000 investment ends up, I guess, just looking bad on their skin forever.
Yeah, I think to like sum that up, it really comes back to mostly content and content creation. So what Selom's saying, there's definitely an education and oftentimes like a re-education side of this, right? So there's the people who don't care about their tattoos, don't realize that they need to care about their tattoos in terms of how they'll look long term. But there's also the people that think they're doing their tattoo a service by healing it with petroleum jelly or a vitamin E caked lotion, who are they're actively working against it. So there's kind of like a re-education side to it. Um, and then lastly, there's like the really just the cool factor of the storytelling, like shooting with all of these athletes and getting to tell a more raw, more uncut side of the story that Nike, for example, doesn't let them share. It's actually way more engaging and way more intimate of a video than really anything else I've seen as a sports fan. So really kind of looking to get into those subcultures and a lot of celebrity followings. Hoping that it's going to trickle down and our everyday customers are going to want to share more about themselves as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this idea of community building is a critical pillar to any consumer brand these days. So, maybe dive deeper into some of these influencer partnerships, because I think when I try to put myself in the shoes of like an average listener, an average consumer brand fan who's like watching on Instagram, sometimes it's crazy to see these collabs that happen with companies and try to understand like the mechanics of what happened behind the scenes. So you guys just had Jarvis Landry today. You were shooting with them in Miami, which is crazy. Like a year ago, you were like at school, and now you're shooting with Jarvis Landry, which is insane. So maybe break down like how do those partnerships happen, and what are the economics behind it, right? Like, are you paying him for that? Is he just a huge fan of the product? Like, how does it work?
So there's kind of a few. Well, first of all, we work with an amazing creative agency called Blitz Creative. They do a ton of sports marketing. Very well connected with these athletes, managers, things like that. So we've shot talent. We've shot quite a bit of NFL talent. Josh Jacobs of the Raiders, um, Jarvis, Stefan, a few other Raiders, Olympic swimmers, stuff like that. It really depends, right? So some guys like Jarvis, for example, are very philanthropic and really care more about that than a small check from a small company. So we, for example, donated to his foundation, and he's happy to give us 2 hours of his time in return for that. Other situations, celebrities or athletes are just really into the product and really behind our vision and have some investment interests. So we're going to be trying to pack them into our seed round, and I'll also be shooting some content. So it does really depend. But it's through this contracting agency that it's really all become possible. Outside of like those video series, though, we just signed an agreement with the UFC to host their Twitch watch along parties for their pay-per-views. So that's pretty cool. Starting to get deeper into that MMA niche I was talking about. And then, Selom, what else am I missing?
Is it called the PFL?
Oh yeah. So this is really cool. The Professional Fight League, if you're not familiar, they air on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus every Thursday night. Actually founded by a guy out of Miami University as well. I believe they're in third place in terms of world viewership for MMA. But we are the official tattoo aftercare sponsor of the PFL, as well as Anthony Pettis, who is a two-time UFC world champion, and now kind of like the Tom Brady of the PFL. So he was also in a Wheaties box, which is pretty cool. So he's like our official spokesperson. But I think this product has really gotten the foot in the door for really cheap with a lot of these athletes because they're really excited to share a story they don't really get to usually share.
Yeah, is that Don Davis? Don Davis, the founder
It
of
is Don,
PFL. Yeah, he's a boss. All right, so I want to shift to this Shark Tank piece, and for multiple reasons. A, you guys came in crushed Shark Tank. B, I think there's so many people that watch Shark Tank, but don't really understand how different it actually is. Right, the experience of being on it, from what I've read, is so much different than like the 2-minute clip that you end up seeing on ABC. So first, I just want to talk about like you guys got a deal with Mark Cuban, who I think anyone's preferred partner, right? Like there's strengths that everybody brings with Mark Cuban's a boss. The deal was $500K for 12% equity, which at that time imputed like a 4.2 million valuation or so. And so, just to set the stage for people who didn't see the episode, but let's just talk about like, what was your guys' approach going in when they reached out to you? Were you like, this is a no brainer? Or were you thinking like, we either want a really favorable deal for ourselves or we're not doing it? Like, walk through the game plan.
So just to set the stage a little further back, I was what I thought was early talks with Post Malone's manager back in the day. So we sent him some product. I got a few Snapchats that I was in Posty's house. Really thought we were close. So Salam and another buddy ended up prank calling me, pretending to be Trey London, and I freaked out. I was like, "We landed on this is our first celebrity. Let's go." Turned out to be yanking my chain, which really hurt. And then, like, what was it? 4 days later, Salam called me and said, "Dude, Shark Tank called us back." I was like, "Fuck you! I'm so over this." But Salam just applied on a whim. I think you said through an Instagram ad.
Yeah, I saw an ad on Instagram and I saw the application, and there was like 10 questions on there, and I didn't think anything of it, so I just like half-assed each of the questions, expecting it to go nowhere. And I got a random phone call in April. I saw the voicemail, but it was a guy named Sai saying that he saw our application, looked at our product. He also has tattoos and he's already a big fan, so he'd love to talk to us. And then we went through with the process. So we ended up calling him back, and he was like, "Yeah, so let's get you guys some paperwork and then send us a few practice pitches." And between April and then us getting there in September, we probably did about 10 practice pitches, because like everyone we did, they just weren't happy with this, which like over and over and over again.
You're saying like you did pitches that you filmed and sent them, and they were like, "No,
Yeah.
it's not good enough."
And like borderline were like, "Listen, really like you guys. I like you guys so much that I'm gonna make you do this again because I can't send this in." Which he didn't have to say, and it was super helpful. But yeah, it took a while to get it right.
So those pitches you sent in, those are like application videos, I'm assuming, for the actual show. Like,
Yeah.
what percent of people get on the show that send those videos in?
They say 40K people apply to the show every year. And then when we shot, so they split the shootings between August, a week in August and a week in September. And each of them had 60 different entrepreneurs. So about 120 people out of the 40K people end up going to pitch. And then out of the 120 people that end up pitching, they only show 80% of them as episodes.
So you get the call, like you send the video in, it was good enough. Eventually you got the call, you're going to be on. When you go in there, like walk us through like what it actually is like. Isn't it like a 2-hour conversation, and like versus, the 5 to 10 minutes that they show on TV? Like give us the rundown.
So the conversations can be easy or difficult depending on like what you tell them. And they've seen hundreds of pitches, so they can pretty easily and quickly sniff out bullshit, like if you're lying about something or something doesn't add up. So we're in there for about 45 minutes. Every question they asked us, we were able to answer it super straightforward. They weren't going too in deep because we weren't bullshitting. We knew our numbers right away because we practiced for 10 days. So before the day we pitched, we were in two separate hotel rooms for 10 days each. So all we did in there was just like work and just practice and practice and practice. We were watching past Shark Tank episodes, trying to figure out which companies mostly closely resembled us, and then going over the question that the sharks asked those companies so we could figure out what we'd say when it came to us. And luckily, most of those questions that we ended up practicing, we ended up being asked those questions.
Yeah, we had like advisors and investors grilling us on everything from financials to like just getting our story down straight and everything like that. One of the coolest parts about the Shark Tank experience, especially after being locked up for 10 days, was they put us all in a ballroom with the groups that were filming that day. So we got to interact with a bunch of other companies that were kind of feeling the same anxieties we were. And more importantly, made some really cool connections. Like there's this guy, JT, who has this company called Craft Mix. It's kind of like a liquid IV, but more so from the lens of being a drink mixer. So I don't know, just got to meet some really cool people who have turned out to be some really great connections that we still meet up with to this day. So that was really cool and really helped calm the nerves before walking in. My perspective on the experience is I actually thought it was pretty darn close to what you see on TV. I mean, granted, you're in there for 50 minutes getting grilled versus the 4 you see on TV. So you don't really know what's going to air. There's definitely some jokes that don't land, and you got to just hope they don't air. But like it felt like the show I grew up watching, truly.
A lot of people think that when you get on this show, it's multiple takes. So you just get asked the same question over and over again, but it's just all done in one take. and then the sharks are all talking over each other. So you have to figure out who you want to answer and paint your story that way. So there's a lot of information that we had to leave out based on the questions that they wanted answers to, and they're pretty demanding about who you should answer.
Yeah. And so you guys went in, obviously got the deal with Mark. I think that was your ideal partner, but like why? When you thought about, because Mark seems like the one with the deepest connections, the most creativity around being able to go outside the box, and like he has a huge portfolio to connect you with other brands, right? The athletics tie-in is huge. But like, did you think about some of the other partners and just like went with Mark, or how do you approach that piece?
So to your point, Mark's definitely the most well connected. He has the deepest pockets. Obviously, NBA is a huge franchise for tattoos, considering they're wearing sleeveless shirts, essentially jerseys, the entire game. So it made a lot of sense from that perspective. But I think what really drew me to Mark in general is he understood that it was so much bigger than a product company. It was so much bigger than CPG, and I think that's kind of where Kevin's head was at. Or the opposite. Kevin really saw it more as a traditional CPG play, and whereas Mark really understood it's all about the community and the lifestyle aspect of the branding. So that paired with who he is as a leader and in business really was a no-brainer.
And so what's that been like, so far? Obviously, I'm sure when people watch the show, Mark does a million deals, that they don't expect that these companies like working with Mark on a weekly basis. But like, how tactical has he and his team been to you and the strategy and improvements you've made since the show aired, et cetera? Like, talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, due diligence was definitely kind of a frustrating process, right? He has a lot of leverage there in terms of the terms he can command. And we tried to push back on some, and it wasn't so forgiving on that side of things. But once the deal was kind of ironed out and we knew we were moving forward together, not only Mark himself, but he has a great team of people around him that we've gotten to work with. And every time we've asked for Mark's time, we've gotten on Zoom with him and hashed out our strategy for an hour. He's been surprisingly available to us.
That's awesome. So you referenced you're trying to raise a seed round soon.
Yep.
How are you thinking about? So you got $500K from Shark Tank, which is definitely not nothing, and you guys have a high revenue run rate. I was talking to Selom before. You're fairly profitable, so you've got all of those things firing, right? Why raise another round? Like, what's the rationale behind that, and how are you approaching that in terms of the investors you want to make, fit in the cap table?
So unit economics are super favorable. The business can be self-funded if it needs to be in terms of just revenue and returning sales. But we know people are hot on our trail after Shark Tank. There's, it becomes a viable business once you see it on TV. There's people get the confidence to enter the market, and rightfully so. So we know there's people hot on our tails. There's also competitors out there existing who probably are a little less afraid to put some money behind brand spend at this point. Basically, the motivation for this raise is really fuel for the fire. In terms of marketing, it's getting deeper in the roots and getting in more people's hands. But what we're really looking for from strategic partners and cap table space is really, it's a few things. One is that, kind of celebrity connection, so we can facilitate and launchpad that storytelling aspect of our business. The other is we really wanted to get a shop on the cap table. So we went down the venture capital route for like 2-3 months, just kind of pitching our hearts out. And, unfortunately there was a lot of interest, but we found it pretty tough to find the right partner. With VC, we found there's like oftentimes a target ownership percentage. And it was a little bit dehumanizing for the business, I think, to go through that. But luckily, we found a VC lead who doesn't have that target ownership percentage. They'd be fine if we never raised another dime again. So that kind of like takes the pressure off of hopping on the VC treadmill, if you will. And lastly, really just kind of looking to partner with strategics that have helped bring success to us from the start. So, like I said, that Blitz creative agency, we're looking to get them involved. We're looking to get our manufacturer involved. Really just really trying to solidify our costs and get them as low as possible as we look to scale with the $2 million spend.
Yeah, aligning incentives up and down the value stack. If you can get all your providers aligned, then it's fascinating, like the world we live in right now, right? Because like 3 or 4 years ago, and maybe even more recently than that, the tables were flipped than they from what they are now, where like people who wanted to raise money were like begging investors and they had to like not take whoever they could get, but like it was much more of a like, as long as you bring some value to the table, you're in. Now I feel like the dynamic, the leverage has shifted completely where you guys can basically pick and choose effectively, right? You've had some trouble, it sounds like, with the VC route, but that might just be model and make at this stage. But like I'm sure you'll have your pick of celebrity influencers, right? You'll have your pick of service-based agencies, that you'll have your pick of strategics. And so that's got to be a great position to be in, especially like this is your first time raising like institutional money.
Yeah.
So congrats on that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think just a lot of people get it, right, is what it comes down to. So I think the angel money comes really easy because it can be conveyed in a very simple conversation about what we're trying to do. Whereas the VC, it can get lost anywhere from the first conversation to early due diligence, right? So to your point, like angels, it's been very, very pick and choose, and we're lucky to be able to choose from a suite of people who can provide value. Same thing with the agencies, but yeah, was not a fan of the venture capital route. Glad to be done with that.
Totally. All right, I got a couple more questions for you, then we'll get you out of here. So we typically ask this startup manifesto question on the podcast, and it's kind of like top 5 key lessons or pitfalls to avoid. I'd love to like shift it slightly, just given where you guys came from. And so the way I'd ask it to you guys is, for people trying to start a company while they're in school, and of course grow something big after, what do you think are the 5 biggest key lessons or kind of pitfalls to avoid?
Salam, do you want to give yours? I have one that I need to share, and that's you have to learn Facebook ads and paid social. Like that is baseline. You have to if you want to be any sort of DTC. Um, and a kind of pitfall that comes with that is there's so much information out there that people are trying to package and repackage and charge for. You can learn all of this shit on your own with Google and YouTube. It's that and Facebook groups where kind of gurus and people who are doing quite well are just happy to share their knowledge for free. So I think that's a great first step.
I feel like one is also you kind of have to low-key have tunnel vision and can't be distracted by what other people think about what you're doing. So obviously there's going to be people out there who are going to be supporting you, people who are going to be talking shit, people are going to be clapping along the way. And if people like decide to clap or like not clap, you just have to try to find a way to keep winning either way. So just like having a focused mindset, tunnel vision, and just like knowing what you really want and going after it.
Yeah. To that point though, like I don't support the college dropout model. Like I don't think you need to make it your everything at that time in hopes to succeed. I think it's definitely a learning process, and if you can buy yourself time while earning a college degree or having a full time job, I think it's not something you're going to learn overnight. So don't quit too early.
Yeah. I mean, the PSA I'm taking from this, and like I've gotten to this in a roundabout way, but you hear all these stories of people saying like, oh, like, it's like the 10-year overnight success or whatever. It's their 3rd company or 4th company, and they failed on 1, 2, and 3. And like the skill development compounding is actually more valuable than anything else. And that's why number 4 is succeeding. For you guys, like, you know, an outsider who doesn't know the story would say like, oh, this is their first company. Like they hit a home run. It just seemed to work out. But it feels like the entire time you guys were playing around, experimenting. You had Ella Harding, you had different things where those were failures and you were compounding your skills through that. And so if there's anything to take away for someone who's in college, it's, you want to take asymmetric bets. The downside of starting something in college and it failing is not only zero, it was probably free to start. So like you're learning more than you were learning in school. It's not even a downside. The upside, if it fails, is that you start that compounding graph sooner, right? And then you can hit that inflection point. And so you guys should be on the poster for that message. And it's still crazy to me how many people like bitch and moan in school, like, I don't know what to do. I don't have an idea. And then when it comes time to start their first company and they're 25, they go all in financially and they end up bankrupt because they never developed those skills. So, kudos to you guys for not being afraid to like spin the wheels a few times before and now you have a huge hit.
Yeah, I think you summed that up perfectly. It's all about like balancing the risk. And I'm blanking on the book. I want to say it's Originals by Adam Grant. It's funny how like these successful entrepreneurs who are viewed as these crazy risk takers, um, when you look at their lives and how they got to their successful point, it's actually just a bunch of risk mitigation. It's learning while doing something else. It's trying things while having other things firing. Rather than really just this last ditch all in effort to make it succeed.
That 4 months between selling Ella Harding and starting Mad Rabbit, like officially launching, I think Oliver and I tested about 2 or 3 more companies in between that time period while we were also working on Mad Rabbit. So we had launched a sleepwear brand and also a women's handbag brand. And I think there was one more, but we were still like testing, trying to figure out what would stick, and ended up being Mad Rabbit.
Yeah. Selom, I love how you were like, I wasn't sure about Mad Rabbit because I didn't have any tattoos at the time, but you guys were selling like luxury women's bathing suits and handbags as well. I love that. All right. So the last question that we typically go into is like the brainstorm, and this is super open, but imagine Mad Rabbit was dead tomorrow and you guys still have like the knowledge and awareness, but you can't work on it or anything in the tattoo space, let's say. You guys seem fairly plugged in, especially around social influencer, like new age media. What are some other areas or even just like one company that you would be excited about trying to start tomorrow if Mad Rabbit was gone?
I feel like mine would low-key be in the service route. So it wouldn't be a product-based company. It would be like a service with teaching people about e-commerce, the basic ins and outs of advertising, building a brand, building proper, I guess, taxes to bring customers in. So
Like
it'd
a
probably be
branding
more so,
kind of.
yeah. So it'd be more so a service, not a product-based company next.
I think there is a huge, and this idea is partially coming from our CFO, Drew. I think there's a huge need for improved virtual customer service. Um, and Mad Rabbit is fully guilty of this. Like our phone service is pretty trash customer service wise. It's something we need to improve. Our email service is okay. It's offshore, and we dedicate a lot of time and resources towards improving that. But it's not where we feel the rest of our company is. And that's interesting to me because customer service is such a driving force of continued business success. So I think there's a lot of room for innovation there. So I mean, just spitballing off the top of my head, I could totally see a customer service agency that you contract for your online Shopify store where you have dedicated representatives who know everything about your shit. And it's just an immediate, essentially FaceTime when you have questions. In the same way that there's a chat bot or something like that, I think personalizing that experience and understanding the customer's pain points, I think it brings in a lot of great data that you're missing, and I also think it's an opportunity to serve your existing customers a lot better.
Yeah. So like something in the middle. So like on one end of the spectrum, it's big companies with fat margins. They'll hire like in-house customer service people, and that's like super expensive because they're fully loaded. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got it sounds like what you guys are doing now, which is like super offshore, super non-tailored, like into something in the middle where you can get the best of this person like works for our company, maybe like fractionally or part-time, but they're trained up a lot heavier than like a offshore team, but then
Yeah,
distributed and not fully loaded. I totally agree. That has to exist. Like it's crazy to me. So many
it
brands that
very
like
well may.
print. Yeah.
It should. It should.
Yeah. Even if it doesn't, like so many brands that just print money, like they have the shittiest customer service. It doesn't make sense. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's difficult. It's difficult. Our main person in the Philippines, he's like made his own agency now and trains people. And we've been pretty lucky that like we have him on our team.
What do you think differentiates like an 8 out of 10 in that space and like a 3 out of 10? Is it just deep product knowledge, or is it simpler things like less typos and like quick communication? Like what, when you guys lift up the curtain and try to like figure out what are the low hanging fruits that we can really radically improve, like what is it?
I think a lot of times, especially when education is such a core part of what we're trying to do content wise, there's definitely content that people are going to be missing that have a specific question. So like we can answer a question 100 times through different videos, but if they don't see those videos, they're still going to have the same question. For example, does this work on dark skin? We shoot with a bunch of black athletes all the time, and models as well. And you'd think that question would be kind of answered, but I think having an intimate reaction or conversation rather, with someone about that who's knowledgeable about the product line, I think that goes a really long way. And then, like I said, the other side of that is really understanding the pain points better. It's the chance to talk to your customers on every transaction where they need help, versus sending out a survey or something like that after purchase.
You know what I think should exist? I just like this. We'll see how well I can formulate this because it's just off the top of my head. But like, there should be a platform, third-party platform, where you basically crowdsource answers to your frequently asked questions by your own consumers, and you reward them accordingly. And like, all the brands are on the same platform. So like, let's say it was called like Lightning. You'd go to lightning.com, you would search Mad Rabbit, and then there'd be an archive of like all of the, obviously like the easy to answer product questions that you guys could film answers to, but then all of the like one-off questions, if someone had it and got their answer, they could film themselves answering it. And like, you would then reward them with like a coupon or like some crypto or some way to pay them for it, and build like this engine of like, ever building FAQs. That would be fascinating if something like that existed.
Amazon actually low-key does that, because on our Amazon page, I get emails every once in a while. Someone asked a question and I go there to check, and then someone else already answered that person's question relating to our product.
Yeah. That's of course, Amazon, great idea. I was gonna drill out there, but actually, like, it's a great broader theme of like, okay, you guys are trying to be the community shepherds for tattoo, right? Like, at the broadest stage. So like, building experiences where one node of the community can help another node, whether it's like, hey, these products exist, or these are the answers to your questions. Like, that doesn't happen enough in every community, let alone tattoo. But all these communities, there isn't enough facilitation of the sharing, because I think because there's no incentive to do so. So like, on Amazon, you've got like the crazy people who just sit in their house and respond to Amazon questions all day. But like, I think there could be a lot more of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's actually something we're kind of looking to bring on site, as well as we're experimenting with implementing a forum. So in the same way that, like, yes, it's great when we repost these tattoo stories that our customers are sharing. It's kind of one platform, and it takes our social media manager sifting through them, things like that. Whereas if it's forum and it's more open source, like, these people can interact directly with each other. They can answer questions, they can ask whatever questions, and they can share whatever they want. So that's actually something we're looking to add to our site in the next month or so.
Yeah, and that's awesome. It's been great chopping it up. I know Selom dropped, but I just want to acknowledge you guys before I let you go. I think if nothing else, like, this conversation has shown like grit, determination, of course, but a path for someone who's in college. And, I don't know if you guys were lost when you figured this out, but like, someone who feels like they haven't been connected to what their purpose is or what they want to chase, and they have like a kernel of an idea. This hopefully will serve as a blueprint for that person to just start taking incremental steps over and over. And so, in addition to that, like, I just want to thank you guys so much for coming on. I'm a huge fan already. You guys are repping the tribe big time, and I wish you guys all the best.
Of course, appreciate that. Yeah, and just to reflect on your point, like, I guess my final word of advice to those people in college is literally just start. It doesn't need to be your passion. Like I said, we started this when I had 2 tattoos, Selom had none. It's really just about growing your business acumen, and there's no other way to do that than starting and struggling through it. So now's a good time to start.
Nice. Well said. Oliver, Zach, and Selom Agbitor, co-founders of Mad Rabbit. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show.
Later, Kallaway. Talk soon.